stand by in 2 minutes.
Offer design, printing and branding services using large format printing, offset and digital printing. Our approach to printing, graphics design and branding is top-notch with quality services including roll-up banners, street banners, teardrops, reflective banners, telescope banners, vehicle branding, road signages, mugs, badges, t-shirts, polo shirts, hoodies, pens, letterheads, business cards, envelopes, receipt books, brochures, flyers, posters, calendars, magazines, wedding cards, plastic ID cards, funeral programs, and many more. We also have indoor and outdoor videography, photography, and live streaming services. Visit us at our Migori Market, Onyinjo Bridge, Tiendege Stage offices. Call or WhatsApp us through 0721 37 9308 or 0736 35 2224. Connect with us on YouTube and Facebook at Blackman TV. We are on TikTok as BTV Kenya and also Blackman Studios on Facebook as well. Blackman Digital Graphics, quality you can trust. Welcome to Blackman Digital Graphics. We offer design, printing and branding services using large format printing, offset and digital printing. Our approach to printing, graphics design and branding is top-notch with quality services including roll-up banners, street banners, teardrops, reflective banners, telescope banners, vehicle branding, road signages, mugs, badges, t-shirts, polo shirts, hoodies, pens, letterheads, business cards, envelopes, receipt books, brochures, flyers, posters, calendars, magazines, wedding cards, plastic ID cards, funeral programs, and many more. We also have indoor and outdoor videography, photography, and live streaming services. Visit us at our Migori Market, Onyinjo Bridge, Tiendege Stage offices. Call or WhatsApp us through 0721 37 9308 or 0736 35 2224. Connect with us on YouTube and Facebook at Blackman TV. We are on TikTok as BTV Kenya and also Blackman Studios on Facebook as well. Blackman Digital Graphics, quality you can trust.
Good morning. Welcome to the vibrant morning here at BTV Kenya. I'm your host, Isaiah Gagi, standing in for Prof, who is out today. But we thank God it is another wonderful Thursday, the 14th, here in Migori, here in Kenya. We are live. You can follow up the vibrant morning on BTV Kenya Facebook page, or you can follow us also on YouTube, BTV Kenya. You can also follow us on TikTok. Today we are very grateful to God, and we just want to dive into people daily. That's what we are looking at today. And as you can see on your screen, you realize that the People Daily front page cover is well decorated with many goodies, many things that we would love to know about what is happening in our country to date. You can see on the top of the page, On the top of the page here, you can see a picture of Linturi. CS Linturi, you can see his picture there. And there is written MPs demand probe on Linturi's bribery claim. Now, the MPs are out now. They are demanding that Linturi's should be probed further to get more information. And you can also see, just before we get into the headline of the People Daily newspaper, we have there's another photo there. I hope you can see the photo here, the photo of Mudavadi, and it is Mudavadi saying the fight for Raila, AU job is still on course. And just down here, coming to the big story, the front cover story, we see here a picture of people demonstrating. Yes, that's we see the picture of people demonstrating. And the big story of the day on the People Daily is we see that there is a fresh crisis emerging up as Treasury cuts 15 billion for junior secondary school. Now, that is the big story of the day here at the People Daily. Now, as the top story is, now there's the capitation that has been placed on junior secondary school. That capitation has been slashed, even as teachers protest against the refusal of the Teacher Service Commission to employ them on permanent basis. The Treasury still goes on and cut 15 billion of the capitation. Now, that is what we have on the cover page and on the story that we get from the People Daily. Now, we just want to move very fast, and we are getting into the next page. Yes, moving into the next page. Moving to the next page. Moving into the next page. We are having a lot here. We are having a lot here. And as you can see on the next page, we have matters on health. On the next page, we have matters on health. As you can see, health experts now welcome the task force to come and intervene. They want the task force to be formed to come and intervene and examine what are the challenges that they face constantly. We realized that constantly. Just a few days ago, there was the demonstration. The doctors were on the street. Now, the doctors, the health experts, welcome a task force to be formed and to help to find out why are there constant challenges that are happening in Kenya revolving health matters. That is on page 2. You'll get that on page 2, as you can see on our screen. And moving down, we see a small capitation. There are just some small stories there, which are very, very, very important. Those are very, very important. Moving on to page 3. Page 3, we see now the MPs from the coastal region now demands that Muguka Mirage sell outlawed in the area. Now, that is what is on the page. Now, they're saying that it is the legislator's fault, easy liability on the low cost, making it necessary. Now, they want the Mirage now to be outlawed in the coastal region. That is what we get on the second page, on the third page as the main story of the day on that page. Now, moving on to page 4. Now there is another crisis looming. Now that's the main story that we have read. You will find the detail of the story on page 4. The detail of the story about the the crisis whereby the capitation on junior secondary school fee fund has been slashed. You will find the main story there, and you can have more. There is more, there is more, there is more on this page. The Daily Nation is giving us more. Now, moving on to page 5. On page 5 is where you get more stories on the probe on Linturi. Yes, Linturi, the agriculture. Yes, Linturi, you'll find more on page 5. That's where you'll get his stories and more of those stories. Now, moving on to page 6. Our viewers, we are just doing this very brief, then we'll get back into it and dive and get the more of the stories as they fold by time. Now, on page 6, yes, on page 6, now we see EACC now traces 6.3 billion illegally acquired assets. Now, the EACC has been outside there trying to bring back the assets that has been acquired illegally. Now they are now tracing assets worth 6.63 billion which has been acquired illegally. Moving on to page 7. Now there is where you get the main story about Mudavadi, when Mudavadi said that the government is still out to push further for the post for Raila Odinga on AU job. You'll get that on page 7. And moving to page 8, now we get a story. There's a story there, a very interesting story, where new judges has a burden to clear there's a backlog of cases. Which are amounting to around 12,000 cases, which the new judges has work to clear with. That you'll find on page 8. And moving on to page 9. It deals with matters of sports. That's advertisement. We move on to page 10. Page 10 is where we have quotes of the day. We have so many well-renowned people with their quotes of the day. We have Homa Bay Senator Moses with a quote there, and we also have Mombasa Women Representative Zamzam Mohammed with a quote there, and we also have Kakamega County Secretary Lawrence with a quote there that we'll find there. And we also have a case about Munyako wake up call. You also find that there. Moving on to page 11. Yes, when you move to page 11, now there are also some stories there, but these are now opinion and the People's Daily. The stories that we have from Mr. Hansen Owila is taking on the story that is be wary on the talk ending presidential term limit. That's a story to warn people. That's an opinion there. And we have another opinion story from Sharon Otieno. Sharon Otieno is talking about flood. On floods, nature is speaking about, but are we really listening when the nature calls about? That the opinion story, article story from Otieno Sharon. Now, as we move to page 12, you'll find that there are more of stories that we are getting on the People Daily. Like I said before and earlier, please, you can follow us on BTV Kenya. That is on Facebook page. You can also follow us on YouTube, BTV Kenya. Just log onto your YouTube, go to BTV Kenya, type BTV Kenya, you'll find us there. You can also follow us up the Vibrant Morning. Also, you can reach us on TikTok. I want us to take a brief break and just take a cup of water. I know it is hot here in Migori. We just want to take a short break, then we'll be back to continue from where we have stopped. Thank you, my viewers. Keep tuned.
Majama iliacha udem kubali anapiga mandumba, so unajua bola hizo na watu wanamwangalia sana. When will this end, for God's Christ's sake?
Mimi si mama yako ya kwanza. Unataka tena leo utakula kwa nyumba yangu wewe.
Kwani udem alinipea room number? Nimekubali ati mimi nikumudhie. Kiburi hatoka nyaro wadwa. Aki Mungu mmoja sikudanganya. Ya pemo ya mumeru puonjo nyaka makia kule. Blood. My.
After 1 week, I'll pick you from there. And then we'll start living alone. Are you happy for that?
Wewe kijana. Utanijua mimi mganga. Unajaribu mtoto wangu sawa? Utanijua.
Welcome to Blackman Digital Graphics. We offer design, printing and branding services using large format printing, offset and digital printing. Our approach to printing, graphics design and branding is top-notch with quality services including roll-up banners, street banners, teardrops, reflective banners, telescope banners, vehicle branding, road signages, mugs, badges, t-shirts, polo shirts, hoodies, pens, letterheads, business cards, envelopes, receipt books, brochures, flyers, posters, calendars, magazines, wedding cards, plastic ID cards, funeral programs, and many more. We also have indoor and outdoor videography, photography, and live streaming services. Visit us at our Migori Market, Onyinjo Bridge, Tiendege Stage offices. Call or WhatsApp us through 0721 379308 or 0736 352224. Connect with us on YouTube and Facebook at Blackman TV. We are on TikTok as BTV Kenya and also Blackman Studios on Facebook as well. Blackman Digital Graphics. Quality you can trust.
Majama iliacha udem kubali anapiga mandumba, so unajua bola hizo na watu wanamwangalia sana. When will this end, for God's Christ's sake?
Mimi si mama yako ya kwanza. Unataka tena leo utakula kwa nyumba yangu wewe.
Kwani udem alinipea room number? Nimekubali ati mimi nikumudhie. Kiburi hatoka nyaro wadwa. Aki Mungu moja si unang'anya. Ya pemo ya momero puonjo nyaka make kiakure. Blood. My.
After 1 week, I'll pick you from there. And then we'll start living alone. Are you happy for that?
Wewe kijana. Utanijua mimi mganga. Wewe unajaribu mtoto wangu sawa? Utanijua.
Welcome back to the vibrant morning here in BTV Kenya. You can follow us on YouTube page, just go to BTV Kenya, or you can also follow us on Facebook page, BTV Kenya. You can also follow us on Twitter, BTV Kenya. Now, we have been looking at the People Daily newspaper, and we are getting into page 12. We are dealt with page 11. We just give brief, more will to follow. On page 12, now we see page 12. Yes, I hope we are there. Now on page 12, you see the picture of Sakaja, the Nairobi governor. Yeah, we realize now Sakaja is crying. Sakaja is crying that they spotted some strangers in the county crucial meetings. How is this possible? Yes, that will get there on the story. And you also on top of the page, you'll also see in Nyandarua interns now seek for wax lots. That will also get there. Now you also see on the bottom of the page, there's a story there where senators demand that Narok County officials sacking. The Narok County officials, the senator wants them to be sacked. Over 300 million Kenyan shillings irregular spending. They're just spending anyhowly. Now that the story, you have it there. Now moving to page 13. Now on page 13, yes, we see there a win for Wanga as county gets a nod to build new office on leased land. Yeah, Wanga is winning big. You can see that story there. We also have a story there about Kakamega staff in the red over unmerited payment. Now things are getting hotter in Kakamega there. Down on the same page, on page 13, we see university student denies destroying ex-boyfriend's TV. Those are just but minor stories, but they are stories that are making they are making now the newspaper what it is. On the People Daily, you also see Kasab, small story there about Muranga to disburse over 23 million to victims, the flood victims. That is a story that you'll also find there on page 13. Now moving to page 14. Page 14. And now we get into the business hub. Now, fuel prices dip by 1 shilling in the latest April review. According to the April review, the fuel prices is going to be deeper with 1 shilling. And looking at there, that's the main story. On the business matters, we also have hundreds of jobs online as best safe losses business. We also have a story there. Kenyan seek lower segment units amid drop in the housing costs. We moving on the same page 14. We have a story about Biden hits Chinese electric cars and solar cells with a higher tariff. The US government is saying the Chinese electric cars now and solar cars, they are now going to have to pay more. They are going to pay more in the United States government. Now moving on to page 15. Now page 15, there is another story there. That is the story whereby the treasury loses billions on illicit cigarette. Billions are lost on illicit cigarette. Business story there. We have Kenyans eye dollars $20.5 billion in a deal from Ruto's US state visit. Wow, 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 wow. That's great. That's great news. And also find there on health matters. We have AR Healthcare opens new outpatient centers in Kamakis. Yes, and down there we also have a story about the African. We have a story down here. You can see the story down here about the Bank of Africa in Cape Inc. financing deal. That's a story we have there. And moving on to page 16. Moving on to page 16, we are having there numbers. Nairobi Stock Exchange. You can see there the stock exchange watch. We have the Kakuzi Eyes new crop market. We have Kakuzi Eyes new crop market, and we also have on down we have how Kenya tapped data from 6.5 million farmers. That's the story you'll find there on business. We also have Crown Pen drops 9 pieces at NSE. That's a story you'll find there on page 16. Moving on to page 17. On page 17 is where we are going to have the world news. People Daily also give you opportunity to have information on the world news. Now, Gaza truce deadlock with Rafah invasion. You know the story about Gaza, the war that is on in Gaza? Yes, you'll get that story and a bit of it there. We also have there, UN says gang behind attack on civilian in Haiti. Now that's the report on the UN. They're saying there is a gang attack on civilian in the lands of Haiti where there's been war and went war. And we also have ex-president, that is ex-president Mutharika, to run during 2025 Malawi's election. Remember the ex-president, that is President Mutharika from Malawi, on ballot campaign. We also get a story there. Charles III transferred the role to Prince William. You can get a story on page 17. Now moving to page 18. Sorry, moving to page 18. Page 18. There we have stories about Eureka, Kenya to enhance cybersecurity measures amid digitization drive. Those are stories about issues to the digital. You'll find there on page 18. That's what we have on page 18, and down there, that's a briefly story. Tomato farmers reap benefits of digitized pest control invasion. That one you'll get there on page 18. Now moving on to page 19. On page 19 on your screen. On page 19, yeah, the spice, the story. My innate authenticity. You'll get that story there, spice. A very wonderful story there. That's a wonderful story. The wonderful story of the actor. The actor is taking on Jackson Onyango. A very beautiful lady. You'll get there the stories, and on there we have, you just have to nail it. These are some of the stories that you can get on the look, and many more. So the people there is giving us something great. Now moving on to page 20. Moving on to page 20. That's on click and clicks. On click and clicks, we have for love of cinema. For those our lovers, those who love cinema, You can get something there for yourself. The pictorials are there, and their and their captions. You'll have to get them and find them there more. Moving on to page 21. Moving on to page 21. 10. There's a very captivating photo there of masked people, and they're talking about songs recently sampled from Magit of Yo. Oh, you got to get this, a story by Peter Ndoria. Please get into the story and find more. That's on entertainment. And moving on to page 22. Moving on to page 22. Family Fusion. Moving on to Family Fusion. You'll find their story, an article story. An article story by Anne Mitu. I just had to grow up. Teens, mom, resilience and growth. You'll find it there on page 22. Moving to page 23. On page 23, we have relatively speaking, from trauma to triumph. A story of triumph, coming from trauma to triumphing, to graduation and to achieving. So it is possible, my dear viewers, it is possible. You can triumph despite what happens to you. On page 24, moving to page 24, yes, taboo. When past comes back haunting. You know, there's some people who have their past. Now, when past comes back haunting, you have a story there by Jerry Minor. Get to read the story. When your past come haunting, what do you need to do? Now, moving on to page 25. On page 25, all we have there is advertisement and all that. Moving on to page 26. Page 26. This is what I love more. This is the page I love most. The page where you love the TV programs. We have the KBC TV program, KTN TV program, Citizen TV program, NTV program. We have Kameme program. We have K24. And we also have horoscope. To those who believe on horoscope, 8 is here. You can check and find out what your star is all about. Down there is what I love most, the Sudoku. You can get the Sudoku there. And you also have the crossword there. You can have a lot to keep yourself busy. And life like that. Get to read that. What I did when I make it in arithmetics, that's fun. You got not to miss out on the People Daily. Now moving on to page 27. On page 27, now we dive into the People Sports. We dive into sports. Sports is amazing. Now there is a storm brewing up. Brainstorm is up. Things are up. We talk to decide on Paris coaching position after backlash on double. You got to get that on the spot on page 27. Now, Hyundai Sport, Tinak makes stride with I-20 on, really, the Portugal. That's the story of sports you'll get there. We have the Kenya Junior Golf is there. Kenya Junior finishes second at All African Junior Golf Championship. You'll get that story here on page 27 of the People Daily. And down there we have Pals Aak Jr., winner of Hamza Happy with new improvement. The sports is hot here. The sports are hot here. Very, very hot. We have hot top stories of sports here on People Daily. Now, moving on to page 28. On page 28, what we have there, Kenya moves home. Kenya moves home matches to Malawi. That is on Harambee Stars. Yes, the Harambee Stars player celebrates with coach Egin Fiza after won Four Nations tournament in Malawi's match. You've got to get there and read more about the Harambee Stars and all those. And we also have there relegation drops flight to highlight Football Kenya Federation Premier League amid midweek match fixes. You'll get there. Midweek match fixes are also there. You'll find them there. Matters of doping. Rana Kiplagat handed a 4-year doping ban after his appeal failed. It means that Kiplagat is going to be. You got to read the story. I told you the spot is out here. Now moving on to page 29. Moving on to page 29. The story is still there. Is he Old Trafford bound? Manchester United. I don't know what the story is all about, but Thomas Frank worked during a recent Premier League match. You've got to read that. That's a very hot story. Story from London. We are also having Hopes, that is on netball. Hopes as Netball Federation partners with Pastor Dorcas for PW League. You get to read that story. American wants answers from WADA, but trust issues persists. Those are stories. Oklahoma City Thunder beats Mavic to level semi-final series. That's on Basketball International. You'll find the story there. Another story down on page 29. That's Wednesday promises key survival battle in the La Liga. The La Liga is hot this Wednesday. Please keep reading the People Daily Sports. And moving on to page on to page 30. When you move to page 30, Perez and co feted by the scribes. You'll get that story there. People are getting feted. You don't need to look further. And there is also story Munyao Ice Podium to finish at Paris 2024 Olympic Games. You remember Munyao? Munyao is out. Munyao is out on Olympics. A story that you don't want to miss. After Manchester United was hammered, they were beaten actually 1-0. Now they are back on FA Cup final to be last match after Bruno Fernandes for Red Devils with Saudi Arabia clubs. Bruno is about to move to Saudi Arabia. So FA is going to be his last match, FA Cup final. That will be Manchester United against Manchester City. Those are the stories you expect to find there. Moving on to page 30, on to page 31. The top story, Zico's rallying call. Remember Coach Zico? I don't want to give you much of the information. You've got to find them there and read much of the story. There are also stories about Emirates Arsenal women's squad, men home next week. And we have Sports Minister Arjun Thakur confident in India nation to fit 2036 Olympic. That is very long. It is good to have hopes. You'll only get that on the People Daily on the last page, page 32. Let's get to the last page of page 32. Adverts. People Daily is coming to your doorstep. Remember, People Daily is a free copy. You can secure it, you can have it and read much more. I want us to take another short break, and when we're back, we are going to dive into some of the key stories we have on the People Daily. We are going to dive on those key stories and get more in them in the last remaining minutes that we are going to have. Keep tuned, keep in BTV Kenya newspaper review. Follow up on Facebook page BTV Kenya. follow us up on YouTube, BTV Kenya. You can also follow us up on most favorite TikTok. Keep it tuned on BTV Kenya.
Welcome to Blackman Digital Graphics. We offer design, printing and branding services using large format printing, offset and digital printing. Our approach to printing, graphics design and branding is top-notch with quality services including roll-up banners, street banners, teardrops, reflective banners, telescope banners, vehicle branding, road signages, mugs, badges, t-shirts, polo shirts, hoodies, pens, letterheads, business cards, envelopes, receipt books, brochures, flyers, posters, calendars, magazines, wedding cards, plastic ID cards, funeral programs, and many more. We also have indoor and outdoor videography, photography, and live streaming services. Visit us at our Migori Market, Onyinjo Bridge, Tiendege Stage offices. Call or WhatsApp us through 0721 379308 or 0736 352224. Connect with us on YouTube and Facebook at Blackman TV. We are on TikTok as BTV Kenya and also Blackman Studios on Facebook as well. Blackman Digital Graphics. Quality you can trust.
Majama, niliacha udem akubali anapiga mandumba. So unajua bola hizo na watu wanamwangalia sana. When will this end, for God's Christ's sake?
Mimi si mama yako ya kwanza. Unataka tena leo utakula kwa nyumba yangu wewe.
Kwani udem alinipea wrong number? Nimekubali ati mimi nikumudhie. Kiburi hatoka nyaro wadwa. Aki Mungu moja si unaganya. Ya pemo ya mumeru puonjo nyaka makekure. Blood. My.
After 1 week, I'll pick you from there. And then we'll start living alone. Are you happy for that?
Wewe kijana. Utanijua mimi mganga. Unajaribu mtoto wangu sawa? Utanijua.
Welcome back to BTV Kenya. Welcome back to the vibrant morning where we do our newspaper review, and taking on today we were looking at the People Daily. You can also follow us, my dear viewers. You can follow us on Facebook page, that is BTV Kenya. You can follow us on YouTube, that is on BTV Kenya. You can also follow us on TikTok, BTV Kenya. Now, in this last segment, we are going to look at the the top stories that we find out on the People Daily. Now, beginning with the first story, that's the main cover story. We're looking at the fresh crisis as Treasury cuts 15 billion for junior secondary school. Now, capitation for junior secondary school slashed even as teachers stage to protest against Teacher Service Commission refusal to employ them on permanent and pensionable terms. You'll get that on page 4 of the People Daily. And getting into that story, we're just going to get brief. On the picture you see there is a picture of junior secondary school teachers from Nakuru demonstrating on the street demanding better pay. They vow not to turn to work until their demands are met. Those are stories that you'll be able to get there. The main story, as we get into page 4 of that story, please get to the story. Get to the story there and read more. We want to read with you more. We're just going to be brief. Just going to be brief. On page 4. That's on page 4, the story about the junior secondary school. Crisis looms as Treasury slash 15.4 billion junior secondary school fund. The story is by Mercy Mwai. Now, MPs express shock as state does away with 4.9 billion budget meant for school feeding program. This is what Mercy asked for us. Mercy saying, learners are starting at a crisis after the National Treasury slashed monies meant for junior secondary school and the school feeding program. You find out that the lawmakers who sit in the Education Committee, chaired by Tinderet MP Julius Meli, were shocked to learn that the Treasury has reduced the capitation for the junior secondary school by a whopping 15.4 billion, thus affecting about 1 million learners. You've got to get that story only on the People Daily. Alright, it's the main story, but you can also get the story on page 4. You'll get that story on page 4. Don't mind, the story is there on page 4. You can get to read the story on page 4. Wonderful story. Now, we are moving up very fast onto the business matters. Getting into the business matters. The world of business is a very busy world. We are on business matters. We're looking at the fuel prices. Fuel price dipped by 1 shilling in the latest April review. Now, this is a story by Noel Wandera. Consumers will pay a liter of super petrol, diesel, kerosene at a reduced rate of 1 shilling, 1 shilling and 20 cents, and 1 shilling and 30 cents respectively. This is a good news for the Kenyans as the fuel prices drops. The story by Neil Wandera. Fuel prices have reduced by an average of 1 shilling and 17 cents per litre across board in all latest review announced by the Energy Petrol Regulatory Authority, the EPRA. You've got to get that. In its latest review, EPRA Managing Director Daniel Kiptoo said yesterday that consumer will have to pay less. Get that story. That's the story that we've got for you on the People Daily newspaper. That's the story on business matters. And moving up so fast, getting into the world story. The stories, People Daily world stories. The stories about the Gaza truce. Deadlock with the Rafah invasion. That's the main story on the world. When you get into the People Daily, the story from Doha, Tuesday. Qatar says mediation efforts are being hampered by Israel's offensive on Gaza's southern city. You can get the story there. Israel's military operation in Gaza's southern city of Rafah has set ceasefire negotiations with Hamas backward. mediator Qatar has said, adding that the talks have lost steam. You can get that story only on the People Daily. That the story we have there, and on the Spice you get to read something more there. And moving very fast, we're jumping onto the last story. That's not the sports. Sports are out. You get to read the People Daily Sport. The People Daily Sport is on page 27. And on the main sport we have the brewing storm. You get that. The story by Vincent Vioy. We have a story there. KVB Deputy Chief be talked to decide on Paris coaching position after backlash on double. You get to read the story there, where the Kenya Volleyball Federation Deputy President Paul Bitok is set to make a monumental statement touching on his unexpected listing as assistant coach for Malkia Strikers for the upcoming 2024 Paris Olympic Games. You get to read that story and many, many more stories. Now, it is just here in BTV Kenya where you get more stories, where you get to find more on the People Daily newspaper review. Just like we said, once more, let's wrap it up. Let's look very fast to our viewers who are never there. We've got something for you. The top stories that we had for the day are on the cover page. We have the fresh crisis as the Treasury cut 15 billion shillings for junior secondary school. The capitation has been slashed. The MPs were shocked. That's the main story. You'll find it there. On page 2, we have health experts now welcome the plan to form a task force to see on the issues. Why are there strikes year in, year out that are affecting people in Kenya? Move on to page 3, where we have MPs from Coast demand Muguka and Mira cells outlawed in their area. Only that you'll find that there on the People's Daily. On page 4, we have the crisis looms, the story that we've just shared, the main story. And we also have on page 5, Linturi to be probed on bribery claims. You'll get that story there. On page 6, we have ECC now traces 6.63 billion illegal acquired assets. You got to read that. And on page 7, we have Mudavadi on Raila African Union Post. Mudavadi saying the Raila's hand on the post is still on, and they are backing Raila up. On page 8, we have new judges have a burden to clear over 12,000 pending cases in the courts. You got not to miss that story. You also have the editorial there, and so many Sakaja. We also find Sakaja there finding things not easy with him. Sakaja finding things not easy with him as people he didn't know emerged to appear in an executive meeting. I don't know what to take on that. All the story and many more, you only get them on the People Daily. Thank you, my dear viewers. Keep tuned. Keep following up on BTV Kenya Facebook page. Also, you can follow us on YouTube, BTV Kenya. And you can also follow us also on TikTok. Welcome. I'm your host, Isaiah Gagi, standing in for Prof. Thank you so much. Keep tuned. It is only here on BTV Kenya.
Welcome to Blackman Digital Graphics. We offer design, printing and branding services using large format printing, offset and digital printing. Our approach to printing, graphics design and branding is top-notch with quality services including roll-up banners, street banners, teardrops, reflective banners, telescope banners, vehicle branding, road signages, mugs, badges, t-shirts, polo shirts, hoodies, pens, letterheads, business cards, envelopes, receipt books, brochures, flyers, posters, calendars, magazines, wedding cards, plastic ID cards, funeral programs, and many more. We also have indoor and outdoor videography, photography, and live streaming services. Visit us at our Migori Market, Onyinjo Bridge, Tiendege Stage offices. Call or WhatsApp us through 0721 37 9308 or 0736 35 2224. Connect with us on YouTube and Facebook at Blackman TV. We are on TikTok as BTV Kenya and also Blackman Studios on Facebook as well. Blackman Digital Graphics. Quality you can trust.
Majama, nimeacha udem akubali anapiga mandumba. So unajua bola hizo na watu wanamwangalia sana. When will this end, for God's Christ's sake?
Mimi si mama yako ya kwanza. Unataka tena leo utakula kwa nyumba yangu wewe.
Kwani udem alinipea room number? Nimekubali ati mimi nikumudhie. Kiguri hatoka nyaro wadwa. Aki Mungu mmoja si unanganya. Ya pemo ya mumeru puonjo nyaka makekure. Blood. My.
After 1 week, I'll pick you from there. And then we'll start living alone. Are you happy for that?
Wewe kijana. Utanijua mimi mganga. Wewe unajaribu mtoto wangu sawa? Utanijua.